I'm a Republican, and I'm voting for Biden because he needs to be able to heal this country. Our country is broken. Our hearts are broken. Our minds are being broken. And Joe Biden will be the one to unite us, whether we're black, brown, white, whatever color, religion you are. Biden will be able to put this country back together.
It's Thursday, October 15th, only 19 days from the election, and just like a Florida governor at a packed rally, we're giving high fives all around. Ugh. It's voter suppression day on Vote for America, and we'll be talking with the Bulwark's Tim Miller, former White House Coronavirus Task Force aide Olivia Troye, and a former Trump voter who's all in for Biden thanks to Sarah Silverman. And now our host, Lincoln Project co-founder, Jennifer Horn.
And welcome to Vote for America on LPTV. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here to answer your questions and make sure that you have all the information you need to be an informed voter and to help others do the same in this very important election cycle. Wasn't that fun? That opening actually really kind of got me this time around, watching the governor of Florida high-fiving unmasked strangers in a crowded rally as if there isn't a spike in coronavirus infections in his state right now. I find that fascinating and discouraging in so many ways. We're so glad that you are with us today. We have, as always, some information for you here right out of the gate, some voter registration information. We want all of you to know when your registration deadlines are coming up, because keep in mind, even though you may be thinking, of course, I'm going to vote on election day, if you're not registered and you don't get registered by your deadline in your state, you won't be able to vote. So Nebraska's deadline is tomorrow, October 16th, but we want to bring special attention to you folks living in Virginia. Your deadline was a couple of days ago, but because of that crash of the system in Virginia, they have extended the deadline to get registered in the state of Virginia to close of business today. So you can still go online to the Virginia voter registration portal and get registered there if you live in the great state of Virginia. Or again, print it out on your computer, fill it out, and drive it to the postmark office so it gets postmarked by today so that your registration will be valid on election day. And if we can go back to that graphic to show also some important updated voting information for you. Early voting starts October 15th, that's today in North Carolina and Oregon, tomorrow in Washington, on the 17th in Massachusetts, Nevada, and New Mexico. So if you're from any of those states, your opportunity to vote is either now or within the next couple of days. So keep track and remember how important it is to vote early, please. The sooner you get your vote cast, the better for all of us. Now, I'm very happy to introduce, and I apologize in advance. We're having technical problems at my house today. And so instead of my usual notes right in front of my face where I can speak directly to you, I've got my computer off to the side here to keep me up to date. So I'm very happy, as always, to welcome my co-host. She is founder of the Marin Group and Lincoln Project's resident independent voter. Always great to have you with me, Lisa Senecal. How are you?
I am great. Really good to be here, Jennifer.
It's always good to have you with me. Always good to have you with me. So today, we try to give little titles or themes to our shows, and today is Voter Suppression Day, which is kind of a discouraging thing to think about. But on the other hand, it's so important that voters are informed and up to date about what's going on in the world and efforts out there to try to limit their votes so that they know how to overcome them. And we can start with, let's start by talking about Texas a little bit. Lisa, we know that voting opened in Texas 2 days ago. We saw record lines, unbelievably long lines. The governor of Texas and the Republicans there are trying to limit how many drop boxes for absentee ballots are available in the state, and they're specifically targeting those states that have maybe dense urban populations, populations that they know, counties where they know go strongly Democrat, trying to limit the number of votes that come in for Donald Trump. I'm sorry, limit the number of votes that come in for Joe Biden. It's, to me, what's most shocking about it is just how blatant it is. It's like they're not even trying to hide the fact that they're trying to suppress the vote. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's really outrageous. And those lines, I mean, they started looking like that 2 hours before the polls even opened. And, it's inspiring to see how dedicated these voters are and that they are standing in line for hours to be able to participate in our democracy. But it's a total outrage that they have to do it. This should just never be occurring in this country. This is the sort of thing that we would see in a developing country or in an former Eastern Bloc country. And we would say, there's something sketchy going on about the election because of the lines that are there and how tough it is to vote. So that we have that happening in the United States is really disgraceful.
It is. And the Lincoln Project has been involved in the court case trying to overturn the decision made by Governor Abbott in Texas. Of course, it's being appealed, and it will be appealed likely again. And the concern is by the time it gets resolved, we're going to be a day out from the election, and hundreds of thousands of Texas voters will have been completely disenfranchised.
Which is the plan.
Which is the plan. It's the plan. And I have to say, while we're talking about voter suppression, Lisa, I strongly urge my Republican friends to think about what that really means, what that is. For how many years have we as Republicans tried to fight for the integrity of the ballot box? That was the phrase we used, when I was chairman in New Hampshire, how important it was to preserve and protect the integrity of the ballot box. And now here we have our party leaders, our elected Republican officials, openly advocating to limit the access to the ballot box to politically strategic demographics and groups of people. I'm so ashamed, Lisa. I'm so ashamed of what we see happening. And it's not just in Texas, unfortunately. We've got a video, I think, of the lines in Georgia that we can share with folks, a clip from social media, somebody who was driving along as they were approaching into parks so that they could vote. Georgia is another place where they are trying to limit the number of places where early voting is available. Again, because it's a state that has Republican leadership, and they know that early voting tends to benefit the Democratic candidates, and that in this election cycle in particular, we know that it is benefiting Joe Biden, that his supporters are much more likely to come out and engage in early voting. And so here you see in Georgia, ridiculously long lines for the purpose of discouraging our viewers from going out and voting.
Right. And it really makes you, it should make Republicans who are in elective office or who are part of the greater party question, if you have to suppress the vote to win, then what is it about your policies or your candidate in Trump's case, or the way you're speaking to voters that is not really speaking to them? You should not have to try to prevent people from voting in order to win. I mean, it's really outrageous that there seems to be this shocking degree of comfort at this point with cheating, and not seeming to think that people are going to see it as cheating. But yes, if you prevent people from voting, that is cheating. And it's not just these long lines that are doing it. There are lots of different ways that voter suppression efforts are happening. And one of them is all the misinformation coming out of the White House and from Trump in particular about the security and legitimacy of mail-in voting.
Exactly. And we talked a little bit on Tuesday's show about how we should be able to trust our president, that we should at a very basic level know that at least the president of the United States doesn't look in the camera and lie to us. This president has so many times about so many things. But in this particular case, it's particularly destructive to our democracy. to the republic. And the president has misled about all sorts of things. He has tried to sow doubt in the minds of every American about the validity of absentee ballot and mail-in voting. And I just want to remind everybody again that there have been numerous audits, cycle after cycle after cycle, for as long as absentee ballots and mail-in voting have been in this country. And what we know consistently throughout those audits is that it brings a level of fraud of about 0.0025%, almost non-existent. It is a very safe way to vote. Your vote will be tracked, your ballot will be tracked, and your vote will be counted. The president is trying to discourage you from participating in the electoral process in our country. And none of us should accept that, regardless of what party we're in. We saw it in California, Lisa. The California Republican Party putting out fraudulent voter drop-off boxes. It's hard to get that out. We don't have those where I live. But again, trying to get people to essentially throw away their ballots. They will not be counted. They will no longer be valid if they were put in any of those boxes. So this is just an open campaign to get the American people to not vote.
Right, it is. And fortunately, the people are looking out for these kind of things to be happening. But even if one vote goes in one of those boxes and that vote is now stolen from a person who has every right to be casting a ballot and having their voice heard in this election, it's one too many. And it's really shocking to see. These aren't, little rogue elements. It's the California Republican Party that is doing it
openly. We say it all the time. The president says out loud what most people only whisper. Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And let's also look at Pennsylvania before we move on as well. So we know that there were a couple of lawsuits underway in Pennsylvania initiated on the Republican side. The first was about absentee ballots that were postmarked by Election Day, but not received by Election Day. The Republican Party there did not want them counted. It's gone to court. It's been decided. Any ballot in Pennsylvania that is postmarked by Election Day and received within 3 days of Election Day will be counted. And so that's so important for everybody in Pennsylvania. It goes to what we're saying all along: vote early. If you're, if you're voting by absentee ballot, get it, fill it out carefully, check all the boxes, make sure it's in all the appropriate envelopes, and get it in the mail ASAP, today, tomorrow. You want to make sure that it is postmarked well in advance of the election, if at all possible. And then, Lisa, there's this other case that's currently in the court system there in Pennsylvania that's about checking signatures. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah,
more of the same.
More of the same. All of these things are non-issues that are being made issues in an attempt to slow things down, gum up the works, make people think that mail-in voting is going to be more difficult than it is, and that their ballot won't be counted. And it's just, a different type of attempt to disenfranchise voters, and it's shameful.
It's shameful. And let's just say it one more time before we move on, Lisa, because I know you have some other important information to share. It is shameful. It is my party that is leading these efforts to disenfranchise American citizens from casting their ballots. The vote is the cornerstone of the American democracy. It is that upon which our liberties are built. And to see people from my own party leading the effort to silence the voices of the American people through an election, I am so ashamed of that. I am so ashamed. And we need all of you out there to overcome it. Each one of you individually, figure out where you belong to vote, the right way to do it, and get it done. Don't let them win at this terrible game.
Yep, it is a deeply un-American thing that is being done, and we save the democracy by participating in it. So I do want to transition into some reminders for folks because you need to be participating in this democracy as well. One of the ways you can do that is let us know what you need to hear from us. What information can we be providing? What questions do you have? So you can email us. You can leave us a voicemail message on our throwback telephone number. You can tweet us at hashtag #AskVoteForAmerica. And you can always comment during these streams wherever you're watching them. So please do reach out to us. We also want to have you continue to tweet those fantastic photos that we have been getting of yourselves going out and voting. They're so inspiring to see so many Lincoln voters out there getting their ballots in. And you can tweet those to us at hashtag #VoteForAmericaSelfie. And we will continue to share those on the show because they really are inspiring, and it does everybody's heart good to see that it's working and people do trust mail-in voting, and you can go out and do it and participate and not suppress your own vote by worrying that it's not going to be counted. It will be. Get out there and do it. Yep, here's one of those that we have. Jennifer had tweeted and folks were responding. So hand delivered ballot today. And we've seen so many of these coming in. There's another two other people who got their ballots in early, and I've just been looking through so many of these because they're really wonderful. We've had 90-year-old moms who were brought to the polling place by to the drop box by their children, and it's just it is heartening to see. So keep it up, and we'll keep sharing those pictures.
It really is. I love those pictures showing those, just kind of very New Englandy looking small town halls. All these small towns across America. We have put so much focus on the cities and Washington, D.C. Right. It's the folks, like you and me, Lisa, who live in a small town and just are going to get out there and make sure our vote gets counted no matter what it takes. And because it is such a beautiful day, the magical elf came from the side and got me my notes, so and just passed them in. So I'm so happy. Lisa, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're actually, I think we're going to give Jennifer a chance to be able to breathe again and reassure you that she is perfectly healthy. And this is because we talk so much that our mouths get dry and then we end up coughing. This is absolutely not COVID, so don't have any worries about Jennifer's health. Here she comes back with us.
I beg your pardon, Lisa. Thank you so much.
No, not at all. Not at all. I know you're excited to get to our first guest, so I am
really excited.
Here's let you get with
it. Here's the real truth. It is not the coronavirus. I get allergies in the fall every year, and every now and then it's just too much, and the allergy medicine doesn't get it. So I apologize, but I am very happy to be welcoming our next guest to the show. Lisa, thank you so much for your help this morning. So our next guest, moving on, she had a long career. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard her name lately, especially. She had a long career in government, most recently as an advisor to Vice President Pence and an aide to the White House Coronavirus Task Force. We are very happy today to have Olivia Troye with us. Good morning, Olivia. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And I sympathize with the allergies. I get fall allergies too, so I'm just chugging water and tea.
Yes.
And I'm losing my
I'm
voice.
usually able to keep them under control. Today's a tough day. So Olivia, let's start with this Twitter engagement. We have a president who likes to both lead and argue and communicate entirely by Twitter for some reason. But you engaged the president recently on an important topic, and if we can show that tweet in response to something that Donald Trump had tweeted out. You reminded him, disrespecting our elders, using them as political pawns again. Do you not remember the COVID outbreaks in our nation's nursing homes? We've lost parents and grandparents. You sent the vice president no mask to distribute PPE to them for a photo op. I had to plan it. Olivia, how discouraging is it for you, having left your position entirely because of the incompetence of this response, to see the president out there still engaging on this level?
It's really disappointing and it's angering. When I saw that tweet, I think I saw red, because I thought, how dare you do this? How dare you tweet this photo out when there are people suffering right now, and we have our people in assisted living facilities and nursing homes who are sad and lonely as well, because they're not able to see their families as often or as freely as they had in the past. And it was just so frustrating to see that. And I kept thinking, you just don't get it, because you're so focused on yourself that you don't stop to think about everything that America is going through right now.
So, and Olivia, I mean, I've seen so many stories like that. We lived with it, lived through it myself a little bit with my mom. The way that the coronavirus has gotten in the way of families being able to be together and to care for each other when they really need it, and the stories that have come from families with parents with dementia who are now separated from their children because of being in a nursing home, they're heartbreaking. But you would think that they are exactly the American stories that would motivate a president and a vice president to really, go after this disease with a vengeance. But your experience on as an aide to the vice president on the coronavirus task force, you saw something very different than that, didn't you?
I did. I saw the task force experts and the doctors brief repeatedly their concern for what was happening around the country. We certainly discussed the outbreaks in nursing homes. We watched closely what was happening and developing in Washington State. They had one of the most major outbreaks at the very, very beginning of this pandemic. And it was disheartening to know that our country's leaders were being briefed on a daily basis about the gravity of the situation and where it was heading, and the fact that cases would continue to increase and that we would be continuing to lose Americans due to this virus. And then just watch that message completely get flipped on its head and have the president go out repeatedly and undermine what we were saying. And it's really just an impossible situation when you are dealing with a crisis every single day, and you have a president who is leading the response by basically undermining it and saying the opposite of what you want him to say.
And there must have been efforts underway behind the scenes to persuade him to take a different tact, from the vice president, from Dr. Fauci, from folks on the commission. What kind of effort did people engage in to try to convince? Was the president engaging in direct conversations with the task force? Was there the opportunity to try to persuade him otherwise?
Yes, absolutely. The task force members, there were several sessions in the Oval with the president. I can tell you personally, Larry Kudlow himself was pleading. Larry Kudlow, because he's the economist, he's looking at the economic impact of it, and he knows that the president was very focused on the economics and its track record and how the virus would impact all of that, which is why he purposely goes out of his way to play down the pandemic, because he wants it to be a narrative of we're reopening once we had to shut the country down, and saying everything's okay. But Larry Kudlow himself was pleading with people around the cabinet and in the White House, and trying to say, can we just wear the mask? What is the problem with telling people to wear a mask and wearing a mask and showing people by leading by example? And yet it was like it would go in one ear and out the other. And at times you would see the vice president, you would see my former boss go out, have a mask on at times, but then you would see him take it off. And that just shows you firsthand the constant struggle of these people on the task force and the leadership trying to figure out how they continue to stay in the narrative that the president wants them to give. And that is, we're not going to wear masks. And we're going to tell people the exact opposite when we know that that is the number one way to slow the spread of the virus.
The number one way to save lives. To really be direct about it. And Olivia, I find some of this really fascinating. I just want to ask you one more question about this before we move on to our next topic with you. So it's it doesn't surprise any of us to know that there were good, intelligent people trying to persuade the president to take a different path on this. To what degree do you think? I guess what I wonder is, you use the example of Larry Kudlow. Donald Trump chose Larry Kudlow. Theoretically, he trusts Larry Kudlow, but he would not listen to him on a life and death issue. Is it that the president truly simply did not believe that all of that information that was coming to him was accurate? Or was it a conscious choice, a conscious decision on his part to disregard that information because he just thought he knew better somehow for his own ambition, I guess, for his own path?
I think it was a very selfish and self-centered decision by the president. He certainly understood the information that he was being given. He took in the briefings, he processed the information, and the Woodward tapes point to that. You know, he talks about how the virus is much more dangerous than the flu and more contagious, and it might be more severe. It would cause greater deaths than the flu does every year. And it was appalling to actually hear him verbalize that on those Woodward tapes for me, because I kept thinking, so you were listening, you were processing it, you knew the severity of it, you just made a personal decision to disregard it. And I think that just comes down to the president not caring about anyone else but himself. And you've seen the way he has behaved after he himself fell ill with COVID, and you've seen the disregard for it. And I personally know that White House staff are worried and they're scared. And that was a daily reality for us working in the White House, knowing that we were fully exposed to each other and fully exposed to the people traveling. And I was concerned for myself, for my family. I limited my interactions with any of my friends and the community around me, because I knew that I was more exposed than all of them, even though I was getting tested on a daily basis. I knew that I was working in an environment that was dangerous.
Well, and one of the consequences to this is that Dr. Fauci, one of the leading voices from our own CDC, his message has been seriously undermined by the president. The president has intentionally tried to sow doubt in the minds of the people about the veracity and integrity of what Dr. Fauci tells us. So, having been so close to the process, can you kind of give us the simple answer? Should we trust Dr. Fauci? Should the American people listen to Dr. Fauci?
You should absolutely listen to Dr. Fauci. He is a national treasure. He has been working for decades and to protect the American people. And he is an expert. He understands this virus like no other. And I have watched him repeatedly sound the alarm in front of our country's leaders, saying we are going to have a problem. And back in the spring, he was telling us we need to be doing everything we can right now during these months and in the summer, because come the fall and winter, if we don't get the daily rate of increasing cases down, we are going to be in a very bad situation. And we're watching this play out today.
And we're seeing today, as the majority of the states in this country now are seeing gradual or not so gradual increases in infections as we go into the fall here. So I can't imagine what it must have been like for you, Olivia, honestly, being that close to it and the frustration involved. What kept you there for so long? What made you stay?
I think it's the moral struggle that we all face when we hang on in the situation in the White House. It's just, we signed up for this job because we believe that we can make a difference and we want to make a difference. And when you're in there, especially during the pandemic, I covered numerous issues for the over 2 years I was in the White House, but especially starting this past January, when we were seeing what this was going to be and how bad it was going to be, I was committed to doing everything that I could in one of the biggest crises our country has faced in a long time. And I was there in the trenches. I worked side by side with the task force members. I worked day and night. I did conference calls with them. I supported in every way that I could. And I think that's what drives all of us to hang in there, because I've said this before, if not you, then who? And then you worry about who will fill your shoes and whether they will do their best and do the right thing, or whether they will get taken in by the sphere of influence that just, quite frankly, panders to the president in a way that is dangerous in a situation like this.
It's good to hear you talking about that. I think Olivia, in particular, just because I think there are so many of us who, and so many out there who have really developed real anger toward those people working in the White House, because, it's always, why aren't you doing more? I think it's really great for them to hear that there are so many in the White House who are doing more, who are trying so hard to do more and to do the right thing. I have been surprised, frankly, that the vice president hasn't spoken out more. We've seen Dr. Fauci come out and try to be a clearer voice for the American people on this pandemic. I've been surprised that the vice president has not. Have you ever had the opportunity to discuss that with him, or to try to encourage him the same way that people on the task force tried to encourage the president, for the vice president to be more of a voice? Mike Pence's fly is circling around my head as I ask about him today.
He's back. His presence knows we're talking about him.
Right.
I certainly watched the vice president try to do the right thing at times that really mattered. I saw him struggle like the rest of us on a daily basis. And I do believe he was in an impossible situation. And what I did personally was try to work as hard as I could to support him in this environment and try to get him the facts. And when others tried to block me from giving him the facts or put facts in his remarks, which that happened, by the way, which is why I eventually leave, because I end up in this dynamic where I'm constantly finding out and being blindsided that the remarks were changed, that I had worked with a speechwriter who did an amazing job at coming to me to fact check things and make sure that we were telling the American people the truth. And it was hard. And if it was hard for me to face that as one of his immediate staffers in national security, trying to get him through this crisis and trying to staff him as best as I could, I can't imagine what it was like for him to then leave, take the remarks, go into the Oval and have these discussions with a president who's not going to care anyway, and he's your boss.
And of course, that's absolutely the most devastating part about all of this, is that we're facing this critical healthcare crisis with a leader who just genuinely, provably does not care. Olivia, I am so impressed by your courage and your willingness to come out and be a voice that the American people can trust and listen to. And you've really taken on something significant in sharing your story. So we're really grateful that you were here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And you should know that I was watching all of you when I was in the White House. I was in my office and I would watch the ads and I would watch you all talking. And as I left the White House and in the weeks to come, where I had to sit back and watch this from an external point of view, which is shocking to tell you, to be honest, when you're processing it all, I got emotional and I knew that at least I would have you.
And you're making me a little bit emotional listening to you. So thank you very much for that. Listen, we are trying to take down an incumbent president, not for political reasons, but be out of love of country and true concern for the future of our nation and the health and well-being of our families and our neighbors across the country. And having so many people come to that effort that bring the kind of credibility and patriotism that you display is what makes it effective, is what makes it happen. So thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you for that. I hope you have a terrific rest of the week. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. So that was, to me, Lisa, that whole conversation, kind of getting that ear into what was really happening behind the scenes as the coronavirus task force was trying to do its job. The most encouraging part of that interview is the reassurance that there are still some people, at least inside the White House, who are trying, that they are not all Trump Kool-Aid drinkers, that there are people in there that are still trying to serve the American people.
Yeah, I can't imagine being in the position that she was in. And I have so much respect for the courage that she showed by being willing to speak up. That cannot be easy. I'm sure she's lost a lot of friends, even, beyond colleagues, for having spoken up, but it was the right thing to do. And it's just disappointing that, yes, there's still, I don't know who they are, but there's still some good people in the administration, I guess. who are trying to do the right thing.
I think we forget sometimes. Go ahead.
But this would never, it never would have been difficult to do this if the elected Republicans who are in the House and Senate and elected Republicans across the country, these governors in these states who know better. They know that Trump was lying to the American people about COVID. They know that he has lied to the American people about just about everything, because we know he's well over 20,000 lies. And if a few of them, I think we have one or two who have been willing to take a principled stand and speak up. But if just a few more had, the dominoes would have fallen. There would have been safety in numbers, and they could have done something to rein Trump in. And instead, we went through the process that we did with no accountability, and he has just become more and more out of control as his presidency has gone on. And now, because of COVID, it's literally killing Americans.
Right. More out of control and more dangerous. I think we forget sometimes, Lisa, how many people are actually in an administration. We see the ones on TV. We know the names, that become famous or infamous in one way or another. But how many people like Olivia Troye, who are, have spent their lives working in government behind the scenes, who are truly led by a patriotic inspiration and are trying to do the right thing. I'm so happy to hear that there are at least a couple of them still left there. But this election, Lisa, you and I and all of our friends out there who are watching, this election is where we stop it. This is where we put an end to it. This is the opportunity. So everybody, please make sure you cast your ballots early. And a big thank you to Olivia Troye for being with us. Coming up next, our next guest, David Weissman, will be joining us shortly. But before that, here is some more for you from the Lincoln Project.
Grace Mayo, Norman Bernal, Anthony M. Hopkins, William Purcell, Tommy.
In 6 months, COVID-19 has killed more Americans than any disease in 100 years. Donald Trump lied about it, rejected science, and still has no plan to save Americans. Now, Donald Trump has COVID, his White House, his campaign.
Gregory Armstrong.
COVID-19 doesn't care about elections. It spreads, it kills. Over 180,000 Americans over age 60 have died, more each day. But this election is the only way we can protect ourselves.
Nick Cordero.
Donald Trump will never have a plan. Joe Biden does. It's simple. To save Americans, we must change presidents. On November 3rd, vote like your life depends on it.
Dr. Ricardo Castaneda, Ronald Lewis, Daniel and Valerie Zane, Lila A. Fenwick.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Robert Brown.
I think we've done an incredible job between the ventilators and stopping very infected people from China coming in, meaning putting the ban on China. I cut off China very early, and if I didn't, we would have a chart that you wouldn't believe.
I shut down the United States to people from China when I banned travel from China.
President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done, and that was he suspended all travel from China.
What happened was that 40,000 people came out of China because we didn't ban the residents and citizens from coming in. So we created this rush, and we didn't have the ability to test or quarantine those people. And so that seeded the disease here. The ban probably accelerated that the way it was executed.
All of the evidence we have indicates that travel restrictions and quarantines directed at individual countries are unlikely to keep the virus out of our borders.
We made a life-saving move with early action on China.
Welcome back to Vote for America from LPTV. We're having some technical difficulties with getting David Weissman ready for his interview. So hopefully we're going to be able to resolve those, and we'll be coming back with him later in the show. But for now, we are going to jump into some audience interactions that we've had. The first one is a voicemail that we wanted to share with you.
This is John from North Carolina. My question is this. What do you say to a Trump supporter who says that before we had to shut down because of COVID, Trump built one of the best economies in a long time, so that we should vote for Trump because once we get past COVID, which we eventually will, then Trump's economy will have the chance to reignite?
Yeah, Jennifer,
Well,
I'll let you jump in on this one as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great one, and we hear it so often, don't we? Even with the devastation of the economic devastation that has come with the coronavirus, people still saying, but what about this? And Lisa, I've heard you say this many times, that people should remember that the president came in on an economic upswing when our economy was climbing to begin with, anyway. And but beyond that, I also just say it simply isn't true. It simply isn't true. His trade wars brought a significant economic toll to people in many sectors, including job losses. We know that an unprecedented number of farmers, have gone bankrupt, for example, under this president. His tax cuts truly benefited just the very top percent of earners in this country, and did not come with any kind of payout, any payoff for it. How do we pay for them? Well, we're all paying for them, and that's how it goes. So it is so easy to when we're talking about the economy, to look at one piece of it, or to kind of get hooked onto one message with it. But I would suspect that if the folks watching this show right now, the majority of them out there watching, stopped and thought to themselves as to whether or not they are truly better off economically, are they making more money? Are they in the in the job they want to be in? Do they feel like they are economically sound? I bet people would be surprised at how many of them said, no, I really am not. I still worry as I approach payday. I still have, the ends of the month when I can't meet my bills. I still, am struggling, at the grocery store sometimes to figure out what's a priority when I'm, filling my cart. All those kinds of real life economic indicators that people, I think, feel on a regular basis. So I would just say, I just don't think it's true. It's simply not true.
Right. I think this is another case of Trump inheriting something of value, and he's managed to squander it. I know a lot of people voted for him because they thought he was a brilliant businessman and a deal maker. And as you were saying, those deals have not been so great. It's the American people who have been paying, not China. Those are taxes on our goods that we're paying.
China is not paying for the things that they promised they would pay for. Mexico is not paying for the things that the president promised that he would pay for.
Right.
You made a great analogy. That was a great analogy. Once again, inheriting something that he has squandered, and it's not just economically. It's the trust of so many Americans who voted for him as well that he has squandered.
Right, and we have to keep in mind, I know people want to look at the other side of the pandemic and say that he can build the economy again. We wouldn't be in the economic hole that we are, to the degree that we are, if he had not intentionally misled the American people about the severity of COVID-19. We didn't have to be in this situation either health-wise or economically, and it is his intentional actions that have us where we are at this point. I'm going to get fired up about this.
Exactly.
We're going to move on to the next question.
Because that's why we're here, Lisa. That's why you and I are here, because these things are worth getting fired up about. What's the next tweet?
All right. We're going to go to a tweet from Dawn in Colorado. Put my ballot in Dropbox last week and already received confirmation that it was received and confirmed. Which Senate candidates would you recommend donating to in these final weeks? And we're not necessarily going to try to tell you how to spend your money, but we will talk to you about the races that you should be paying attention to right now, because there are some ones in play that I don't think folks thought were going to be in play.
I think you're right. And, here at the Lincoln Project, where we're dedicated to defeating not just Trump, but Trumpism, that means defeating those people who have empowered him to do this, to be as destructive and dangerous as he has been to our country. And so we've been involved in a lot of races in Arizona, in North Carolina, South Carolina, in Colorado, in Iowa now, in Maine. There's so many of them, but there are a few in particular that people might be interested in. Jamie Harrison, the Democrat running in South Carolina against Lindsey Graham. And in my notes, I just wrote Lindsey Graham, ! Who would have thought that Lindsey Graham would be vulnerable in this cycle? If that has to be the greatest testament, the greatest measurement to which this president has become a burden down ballot to Republicans. And by the way, the best example of somebody who deserves to pay the price to Lindsey, in the case of Lindsey Graham. Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi, Mike Espy, is gaining ground there, probably taking people surprised. Sarah Gideon, the former Speaker of the House in Maine, running against Senator Susan Collin, and a very, very close race there. Teresa Green in Iowa running against Joni Ernst. I don't think anybody thought at the beginning of this cycle that Joni Ernst would be in trouble. And he's just a character that I just so enjoy. Dr. Al Gross, running against Senator Dan Sullivan up in Alaska, has mounted an amazing campaign, is doing really well. And we've invested up there, but separate from the race itself, I so enjoy what we have learned about Al Gross. He is such an Alaskan. I mean, in every way. And we just released an ad today supporting him from the Lincoln Project, and it shows him fishing and all these other things. I thought there was a story out there early on that he confronted a bear once or something. And I don't know if that's just some Alaska, Alaskan, urban myth kind of thing, not so, rural myth, but so these races are fun to watch just because they are so unexpected. That's all I have for you on that. How people should invest in running candidates that they should support, that's up to them.
Yep, totally agree with you. We're going to take one more tweet, and then we have fixed our technical problems, so I'm eager to get to that interview. Our final tweet comes from Doug, and he asks, which states count mail-in ballot results on or before Election Day? And this is, we want to be really clear in the answer that we're giving you. There are 33 states that cannot begin to count before Election Day. And this is really important because 3 of those are swing states: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And
exactly,
I'm sure folks have heard this, but we're going to keep saying it over and over again between now and November 3rd. It matters because we are going to see the results coming in swing states that we're waiting on slowly, because the amount of mail-in balloting this year is so massive that beginning to open those envelopes and process those ballots on Election Day means they're not all going to be able to be counted on Election Day. And we're just going to have to be patient, not allow anyone to declare victory in states that have not been officially called and certified for the winner. Because we know that is something that the president has already said he wants to do, to be able to end counting on November 3rd and ignore all the people who stood in those lines and got their ballots in early through mail-in voting. So we're just going to have to be patient and trust that we have a democratic system that works, and we have to let it do its job.
Right. And you can find out what the rule is at your state by going to ncls.org. All the information is there, ncls.org. And just as a reminder, to build on what Lisa just said, the results in your state will be certified by your state, by your Secretary of State. So anything you hear the president say, anything you hear, folks saying on TV is speculation or trying to, extrapolate with the information they do have, trying to figure it out. Until your Secretary of State has certified the results in your state, they are not final. So, Lisa, excellent questions that we get from our viewers, our listeners. This has become my favorite part of the show. I love it.
Yeah, we're getting so many good questions, and every question that we share is representative of so many people who have the same concerns. So keep those coming in. It's really important that we hear what you need to know. We are, I'm now very excited to be able to welcome our next guest. We have resolved the technical problems. So I'd like to welcome David Weissman. He was a longtime Republican, and he was a Trump supporter who voted for Trump in 2016. And he continued to support him until he had an interaction with comedian Sarah Silverman that made him start rethinking and thinking about politics differently. So I want to welcome to Vote for America, David Weissman. I think. There we go. Hey, David, great to have you on.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, I don't have David's audio.
Uh-oh. Can you hear
Maybe
me?
we have not quite resolved our technical issues. Well, okay. David, you with me?
Are you going to hear me now?
Oh, fantastic. I can hear you. So thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate you bearing with us through the technical issues.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on and share my story.
Oh, absolutely. The first thing I want to share is you had a recent tweet that went crazy viral. It was one of the memes that is happening right now with how it started and where you are now. And there we go. So you ended up, from what I can see on here, 318,000 likes on this, 21,000 retweets. This definitely really resonated with folks. What do you think the big excitement and impact was coming from?
Well, I think how, as a person who I was, taking on an ideology like Trumpism, MAGA, how everything was reactionary to owning the libs, always being angry. And a lot of that came from fear indoctrination of right-wing media. And that fear turned to anger. And then when Trump was, 2016 presidential candidate for the Republican Party, it really gotten thick. And instead of a lot of it was anger, frustration, thinking that the conservative voice was being unheard in politics from Obama's presidency for many years. And it was almost like social media war. You're going in there. Americans gotta assimilate to the American way of life. There's only one way of life. There's no different backgrounds. There's no such thing as white privilege or no such thing as this, that. There's only one American way, and that's American first. And it gotten so bad. It really got exhausting and frustrating, and it does take a toll on your health. It takes a toll on your health, mentally, physically, and it's always just anger, so much anger, and it's built up. And then through my journey, I've learned to look at other points of views. And there's more than just one culture, and there's more than just way of life. A black person growing up is definitely different than a white person, and immigrants coming in our country, and like so many things that I've learned in this past 2 years that like really softened my heart, brought down my wall, and became empathetic, and you realize, Democrats are not trying to take away your rights; they're trying to fight for rights of others, and you lose that anger, you lose that hate, you just have a new outlook on life, and you start getting healthy, you start getting out more, and Because if you're going to fight for people, you need to be fit yourself.
Right. And I have to mention it. You look fantastic. You look healthy. You look like you
Thank
feel
you.
better. And one of the things you just said that I'm so glad you mentioned the word, it's exhausting to be angry. It's exhausting to go on social media and do battle with folks. So I'm sure that's part of the relief and lightness that you're feeling now. But part of that transformation came from an interaction that you had with Sarah Silverman, the comedian. But you didn't originally begin that interaction with an intention of being open-minded and
Right.
listening to what she might have to say. We'll go ahead and read off Sarah's tweet here. David and I became friends on Twitter, even though, or maybe even because we were so different politically. He loves Trump. I feel very much the opposite, but we found out we're more alike than we thought. I have a hunch if people turned their vitriol into discourse, we all would. And what a fantastic lesson that that she helped teach you and you helped teach her. Because I think there was something to learn on both sides. So can you tell us what that was like, having that interaction with her and
Sure.
how that sort of evolved?
Well, what happened was it was during a time where conservatives were saying that they were being shadow banned on Twitter, and what that is was like when they're not getting a lot of engagements, not enough retweets, likes, interactions. So they think they were being shadow banned just because they're conservative Trump supporters. So I had a platform. I was a known Trumper, and verified Trumper, and I was like, you know what, this isn't right. So what I did, I got pictures of Sarah Silverman and Stephen Colbert in their comedy skits, when they're dressed as Nazis. And I kind of said, hey, Jack, why are you silencing conservatives when you're allowing liberals like this, dressed in Nazi outfits? And and a lot of the trolling that we do as celebrities is always to get a reaction. It's not because conservatives feel that celebrities use their platform to destroy the American way of life. And so, that's why there's always this animosity between the right and Hollywood, and because they don't understand that celebrities are using their platform for those who don't have a voice. But at the time, I didn't understand it, and then when I trolled her, and normally when you troll celebrities, you normally get blocked or ignored. And she actually responded. She actually quoted me and mentioned about how it's callous humor, how it's not meant to be, it's meant to be subjective, and not necessarily trying to offend people. So then I was kind of surprised. And then I thought, why doesn't she like Trump? He's pro-Israel. She's Jewish. I'm Jewish. And, I started asking her why, and she told me why. And then she asked, why did I like Trump? And normally, you don't really get that kind of civil discourse. It's always insults or blocking. And so I told her why I did. And then I was kind of surprised. I was like, "Whoa!" And in the civil discussion, and like I said before, you normally don't see that on Twitter, definitely on Twitter.
Right.
And then I just started getting curious, like, okay, why do liberals believe the crazy things they do?
Mm-hmm.
Why do they care about illegal aliens over the military, or why do they want to take our guns away? And I interacted with Sarah again, and she answered those questions. So she said, you can actually care about immigrants and and the military at the same time. It's not inclusive. And
right.
And when she quoted me, other people were seeing our exchange and also letting me know about they're seeking asylum laws. There's human rights issues.
Right.
So many key important things that is left out from conservative media that you normally don't see.
Yeah, that leads me to my final question, which we have folks who we are trying to arm with the tools that they need to be able to talk to people who are on the fence and might be reconsidering their support for Trump. So, what would you say to somebody who is wavering? What is what's the thing that reaches someone?
Well, when Trump was a nominee, he spoke. Like I said, he spoke for people that felt unheard. And what Sarah did, she treated me as a human being. She didn't have any expectations, so it stopped me to support Trump, as you saw in the tweet. And all we did was talk. She showed me a different set of facts, and I was encouraged just in dialogue. And eventually, that I started asking questions as I saw that conservative media was basically right-wing propaganda, from demonizing Democrats, Obama, Hillary Clinton, this and liberal values as a whole. And I started questioning if they're wrong about that or they're wrong about Trump. And I started talking to a different variety of people and learned, Trump is a draft dodger, and I'm thinking I voted for a patriotic businessman. And money dodged a draft. Dodging, a coward is not patriotic. Learn about his business failures and learn about his corruption. And I'm thinking, this is not who I thought I voted for. Right. So when my worldview changed in America, and I saw the con that Trump did as well. And when when I was making that decision, I saw his meeting in Helsinki with Putin, and a patriot wouldn't be meeting with Putin behind closed doors, putting our nation at risk. And I saw how Hillary Clinton said that he was a Russian asset. I couldn't believe how right she was, and that told me I made the right decision, and I never looked back. And eventually, in my journey, I was Republican, left Republican Party, stopped supporting Trump, and my journey didn't end. I started learning a lot more, and I eventually became a Democrat in 2019.
Well, David, thank you so much for sharing this story with us. It's so important for people to hear, how to have a civil conversation and to have examples like you out there. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on and letting me share my story with you.
Yeah, thank you. We are going to, wasn't that wonderful? He's an inspiring guy. Yep. We're going to jump right into a couple more Lincoln Project. We're a little bit behind in our show today, and we want to make sure that we have ample time for our final guest. So we're going to take a look at a couple more spots from the Lincoln Project, and then we will be back.
A record of service, a bipartisan leader who puts good ideas ahead of party politics. America knows Joe Biden. He is the man for this moment. Joe Biden's life has been marked by triumphs that didn't change the goodness in him, and public office that never went to his head. Loss and tragedy forged in him a strength and character this country needs more than ever. Not every American will agree with Joe Biden on every issue, but they know he'll unify this nation again. He won't see just Democrats or Republicans. He'll see Americans.
Paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Oh man, come on. I tell you what. Don't let it define you. You are smart as hell. You really are. You can do that. Can I get a phone number for you and I can tell you what I used to do? There's about 25 stutterers I continue to work with this, but I promise you you can do it. And you know when I say I know about bullies, you know about bullies. The kids who make fun.
Bullies are cowards who tear others down.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise.
It's time for decency. It's time for Joe Biden.
It's going to change, honey. I promise you. I promise you. Is it all right if I call him Dad?
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And welcome back to LPTV and Vote for America, where we are trying to make sure that we bring you all the information that you need. And as we've been jumping around in our order today because of the technical difficulty at the beginning, I've got my papers a little bit out of order here as well, but we'll figure it out as we go. I'm really pleased to have our next guest with us. He is a writer for The Bulwark. You can see him, see his stuff there on a regular basis. He's also a communications consultant, and today he is our guest. I'm really happy to welcome Tim Miller. How are you?
Hey, Jennifer, I'm doing great. We've been on so many emails and conference calls over the last, decade. It's good to see you here. And I'm also the political director for Republican Voters Against Trump, and it's been so good for us to work with you guys on a lot of co projects for the greater good here.
And people should be looking for those RVAT videos, those RVAT testimonials out on social media that you guys have been putting together. They are so persuasive. They are, I'm so impressed by them. And I've caught up with my notes now. So we're good. We can, but Tim, the work you guys are doing over there is terrific.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit. Let's start by when we first asked you to come on tonight, it was because there was supposed to be a debate tonight. And we thought it would be interesting to talk to you about that and have you give us, and instead, because the president has refused to debate Vice President Biden, we are going to instead be having kind of dueling town halls. Let's talk about that from both of those issues. The first, the president of the United States is refusing to debate his opponent. How significant is that?
It's significant. I think that it is both a bad strategic move. The president is losing this race right now. It's not over. It's something we need to still keep fighting for every day until he's out of there. But he's losing, and in order, based on the polling that we have from Republican Voters Against Trump, what we see is that to win over the undecided voters, he needs to disqualify Joe Biden. So this was a big opportunity for him to do that during a second debate. And he's refusing because he didn't want to be on Zoom where he could get muted, I guess. So that's a big missed opportunity from a political standpoint. And then in addition, I just think that we have to be able to enjoy the fact, as people who are supporting Joe Biden, that for months now, the conservative media, the Trump campaign, Ronna Romney McDaniel, everybody was saying that Joe Biden was going to be too scared to debate Donald Trump because his mental acuity issues, or because he couldn't stand up there next to big, strong Trump. So over at the Bulwark, I wrote some of their funniest wrong predictions. People can go read if they want today. And my favorite one was Ronna McDaniel saying that if Biden doesn't debate, that should disqualify him from the race. And so I think I finally found something that I agree with Ronna Romney McDaniel about. Disqualification for somebody who doesn't debate.
And to your point, the president had built his whole persona is on, he's this tough guy, he's the strong guy, he'll meet me in the streets, I'll take you down. And he did not have a good first debate with Joe Biden. And so now we see, frankly, that I would say that he's running scared. I think he now knows that he can't stand up to Joe Biden after accusing Joe Biden of not being able to stand up for him. So stand up to him. So instead of that, Joe Biden is going to be doing a town hall on ABC. And then just a couple of days ago, we learned that in the same time slot that Donald Trump will be doing a town hall, I think, on NBC. And before we get into the differences of what we should expect in the differences of those two events, I have to go on the record and say, and you tell me if gut check me if I'm wrong. I think NBC is doing a real disservice to the process and to the American people here by going head to head with their town hall. ABC was set up with Joe Biden well in advance. Why not just do it when Joe Biden's town hall ends, start into Donald Trump's, so that undecided voters and frankly everybody in America who wants to can see both of their presidential candidates?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that NBC has handled it all that well, to be honest, but I also don't know that it's that big of a deal. I mean, frankly, if I'm Joe Biden right now, again, going back to my original point, he's in the lead in this race. It's incumbent upon Donald Trump to try to come up with something to change how the race is going. This happened in 2016, by the way. He got a big assist from James Comey, and that's a big reason why he won, was a late surge among undecided voters. He needs that again. And so having two dueling town halls that kind of cancel themselves out, I think it's pretty safe to say that the president will say something crazy tonight during the NBC town hall, and that will drive all of the coverage tomorrow, while Joe Biden will just be normal, regular Joe during the ABC debate. I think that's the most likely outcome. And I think if that is the outcome, that's a win for Joe Biden. So while NBC might not have handled it perfectly, I think just in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of shaken out well for Biden, knock on wood, presuming nothing out of the ordinary happens tonight.
And just because we know to what degree the president's ego is fed by ratings, I hope that everybody out there will tune into ABC and watch Joe Biden while the president is on the other channel, just to, for a little bit of fun for people like you and me.
Just so you know, I agree with that. Watch Joe Biden tonight, support him. But if Trump gets bigger ratings tonight, fine. Who cares? I wouldn't let anybody let them get too worried about that. If he gets bigger ratings tonight, that's great. I think that the more eyeballs on Trump, the better at this point.
Right.
He really, what you saw in the Clinton-Trump race last time was that he did the best when the news wasn't about him, when the news was about Hillary. And he's not been able to kind of reanimate that magic this time, as the news is always about him every day and his failures, particularly with the virus and kind of his crazy behavior on the campaign trail.
Yeah, and I actually like that perspective. Maybe better to tune in, and the more people see him, the better informed they will be about what they're really doing here. So you made an interesting point about James Comey, and that he really gave Trump an assist in those final days before, whether he intended to or not. And Trump has been kind of desperately looking for his assist this time around in a lot of different ways, openly, publicly calling out to people for their help. He thought he was going to get an assist from Bill Barr with this unmasking investigation. You wrote a great piece about it. And I think that there are a lot of people out there, especially a lot of Republicans, who probably don't really understand. They can find your piece at the Bulwark. Trump's great unmasking hoax is finally dead. I love that you refer to it as a deep state non-scandal, because that is so much of what Trump uses to feed the energy of his base. So I want to address both of those things for us. One, the investigation itself and why it's significant that it went nowhere. And then two, the idea that I would suggest that the president has built his relationship with his base on not just anger and division, but crazy conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I mean, this quick thing on unmasking is, and this, some of the viewers of this probably don't even know what this is, right? I mean, this has been a very niche issue within the kind of conservative media bubble, but within that bubble, they've taken it very seriously. Ted Cruz, said that it was proof that Joe Biden spied on Donald Trump's campaign, which was an insane charge. John Cornyn said that this was worse than Watergate, also insane, of course. So, this has been taken very seriously by important. This is not just one of those, there goes crazy Trump with his tweets. Like, most of the Republican senators have taken this seriously as well. And it was from the start absurd. And, the short of it is this idea that if you get intelligence, people who have national security clearances, and they get an intelligence bulletin that says, American A talks to Russian B, and then you can see what was in the intercepted conversation. If there's something concerning there, you can ask, and then there's a review process to unmask who American A is, to try to understand what was going on. And so this happens, thousands of times over the course of a year. And in this case, it was Michael Flynn who got unmasked quite a few times, and because he was having inappropriate conversations with the Russians, So that's the whole thing. I mean, and so this
he was actually doing something wrong.
Yeah, he was actually doing something wrong. And so then there's this theory going around that the Obama administration kind of knew that it was the Trump people, and they unmasked them inappropriately because they wanted to spy on them. It's all crazy nonsense. So Trump had Bill Barr look into this, just like how he's had Bill Barr look into the trying to prove this crazy conspiracy theory that the Russia hoax was made up, that it wasn't really Russia that attacked the DNC. So Bill Barr's been looking into both these things. Hasn't come up with anything. Had one, they found one minor inappropriate action by a low-level person that was really just not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, and that person is being held accountable. But that's it. There's nothing that comes close to the level of Obama or Biden or Ambassador Rice. And so this quietly, they didn't announce. It got leaked to the Washington Post that the look into this ended yesterday. And so this whole hope, I think, that Trump had, that he was going to be able to put his DOJ to work to prove that Obama and Biden committed a treason, and that in October that Bill Barr could release it. There's no there. They bought their own BS. And so that was a big news story yesterday. I think a lot of people missed if they weren't inside the conservative bubble. And just really quick to your point, yes, I mean, this has been what I've been trying to write about a lot over the last 2 years, is explaining to people just how deep in conspiracy land the right is right now when it comes to believing their BS about what the Democrats' actions are. And I think that even if Joe Biden wins, this is a long-term problem, right? That if you get the Republican base believing that Joe Biden and Barack Obama really committed a treason and were spying on Trump and need to be hanged and stole the election and did a coup, then you're not going to be a kind of voter who wants deals to get cut for the betterment of everybody. So I think this is a really big problem.
It is, and we should go back to something you said at the beginning of that answer to kind of close the loop on that idea. Sure. When you said Ted Cruz and John Cornyn were taking this seriously and calling it worse than Watergate and these sorts of things. I don't believe for a minute that either one of them took it seriously. I think they both saw that this was a tool to keep their base energized because and to assure their reelection. And Republicans should understand that that's what's really happening, that these senators didn't really think that there was some conspiracy to spy on Donald Trump. They thought they could manipulate the voters and use it to energize them on Election Day.
Jennifer, nobody has a lower opinion of Donald Trump's voters than Donald Trump and the Republican senators.
Exactly.
They are playing these people for rubes. And I think you are exactly right. I mean, there are obviously certain exceptions to this, but on many occasions, they're pushing stuff they know is BS to rile up the base because they think their own base is stupid. And this is just it. And you can hear it in the tapes that leaked from Melania. You can hear it in the Woodward tapes. Trump and his family and his enablers think their own voters are stupid. And Olivia Troye, who was on earlier, thank you so much for having her. It's been so cool to do ads with her through Republican Voters Against Trump. But she testified to this as well, about how in private conversations, Trump, says his own supporters are disgusting.
Yeah, I've said it 100 times. Trump thinks you're stupid. Donald Trump thinks you're stupid. That's why he campaigns the way he does. Tim, before we lose you, I have one more question for you. Yeah. You and I are in the same boat here. We are both lifelong Republicans who still consider ourselves right of center conservatives and have also rejected what Donald Trump offers from day one. Give me your best argument for those Republicans out there who know that Trump is wrong, but they're still feeling like they just can't imagine themselves crossing the line even one time and voting for Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket. What's your best argument for those folks to get them to help us do the right thing?
Yeah, to those conservatives listening, number one, I'd say that Joe Biden is not a far left liberal. He was mocked by Democrats during the primary for saying things like, I want to work with Republicans. I believe Republicans can be worked with. And he's held the line on that. Well, he was mocked by the liberal media and progressives on the left. And so Joe Biden, he will hold the line. He will work with Republicans. He is a capitalist. He believes in fundamental American values like freedom of religion and freedom of speech. You don't have to worry about Joe Biden in that regard. That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing is nobody has done more damage to the conservative cause over the long term than Donald Trump. If you look at what the next generation thinks about conservative issues, about the pro-life issue, about America being a force for good in the world, that they don't believe any of that anymore because they associate it all with Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump is doing long-term damage to conservative ideas that it's going to take a long time to repair. And if he's in for another 4 years, it might never be reparable. And so, look, I would just say, and this is in a lot of our Republican Voters Against Trump ads, maybe some people don't agree with this, but if you're one of those people, if you're a conservative, Joe Biden can be a temporary fix. And if in 2 years you want to go back to voting for Republicans to be a check on him, if he oversteps a little bit in your view, do that. Hold him accountable in 2 years. But right now we need to get rid of this guy. He's a menace. And if he's there for 4 more years, it's not going to be the conservative ideology. And maybe this whole country isn't going to be recoverable.
Thank you so much for that, Tim. Tell everybody where can they find Republican voters against Trump online? Where can they find them on? On
check out our videos, rvat.org, and post them on Facebook. It's been crazy. 60 million views of these testimonial videos. And as much as cool as the ads are, and as important as the ads you guys are doing and we're doing are, people watch it more if you post it on Facebook and yourself and say, I was really moved by Jennifer from New Hampshire's video. People watch those longer than they watch ads that are put in their feed. So please post them on Facebook. If you're a young person, I've also got a Snapchat show I'm pushing called Not My Party on Snapchat. So check that out, which is hopefully a home for young voters who maybe feel homeless looking forward, and they see Charlie Kirk on the one side and the DSA on the other side. They don't know where to fit. So if that's you, please check that out too. And thank you guys so much for having me on.
Tim, I love it. I'm not so young, but I'm going to check it out. It sounds great.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for being with us. Tim Miller from Republican Voters Against Trump, and you can see his writing at The Bulwark. Thanks for being with us, Tim. Have a great day.
Love you all.
Love you right back. Thank you. Tim and Sarah Longwell and their crew are doing amazing work over there. Lisa, I thought I loved his closing argument, frankly, at the end there, that conservatism, as a philosophy is being destroyed by this president. We will have no platform from which to make the conservative argument if Donald Trump is allowed 4 more years.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, what the Republican Party stood for has been so debased at this point by Donald Trump that it's unrecognizable. It's sort of anything that you thought the Republican Party stood for. You should assume that Donald Trump represents the polar opposite of those views. So another 4 years. I don't know how the Republican Party digs itself back out and is a viable party still. So yeah, Biden can be a transitional figure, but we have to get Trump out of there. The other thing I really enjoyed about his final comments was his call to action for individuals.
Yes.
We try to do that all the time on this show. There are actions we can each be taking to change minds, change hearts, educate people. So please do continue to send us your thoughts and ideas. You can, across all our social media platforms, you can tweet us questions at #AskVoteForAmerica. And please let us know what you want to hear us talking about and questions you want us to answer on the show. Tweet us those photos of you voting at #VoteForAmerica. Gonna have a brain cramp.
Vote for America selfie.
#VoteForAmerica selfie. Those are great. We'll keep showing those. Next week, we go to 5 days a week. So we're going to have more opportunities to be able to share content that you're giving us. And I want to give a couple very quick reminders. The registration deadlines that we have coming up. Virginia's registration deadline has been extended. You have until close of business today to register if you have not done so in the state of Virginia. So please go online and get that done. And in the state of Nebraska, your registration deadline is tomorrow. And we have one more set of reminders that I wanted to give you. You can pull up there we go, on the early voting. Early voting is now open in North Carolina and Oregon. And Washington State, you start your early voting tomorrow, and Massachusetts, Nevada, and New Mexico all start early voting on Saturday. So please get out there, take your brown bag lunch, bring a chair with you just in case, depending on where you are, bring an umbrella or sunscreen, and please make your voices heard and be an active part of this democracy and cast a vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
That's terrific. And of course, don't forget your mask. If you're voting in person, don't forget your mask and maybe a little pocket hand sanitizer.
Absolutely.
So, Lisa, thank you so much. As always, couldn't get through it without you. It's great to have you here. Always also want to thank our guests. Always, thank you so much, Lisa, and for all the important information that you bring every day as well. And we want to thank our guests, David Weissman and Olivia Troye and Tim Miller. And of course, all of you. We went a little long today, but we're really, really happy that you stayed with us. It's always good to be here with you. And, you know, I just want to encourage people. We had these great guests, David Weissman and Olivia Troye. When you hear their stories about the kind of extraordinary steps that they have taken, and the processes that they have been through, what I think, the moral courage that they both show, not just in what they've done, but in their willingness to talk about it and to bring those stories forward. This is a moment that calls for moral courage from all of us, but especially for those of you out there who feel a loyalty to a party that you believe or have for so long believed stood for values and principles that make our nation strong. I know it's difficult to look at our party and see something so different than that come out of it now, but for the good of our nation, for the good of democracy, for the safety and well-being and health of our families and our neighbors, and frankly, for the future of our children, this is a moment that calls all of us to display that moral courage, to step up and step forward and do the right thing. And I hope that you will join us as we all here at Lincoln Project try to do the right thing and vote for Joe Biden in this election. Thank you so much for being with us. And I look forward to seeing you all back here again tomorrow at LPTV and Vote for America.
This is America, and it's hurting. Right now, we're getting knocked down by the very people who should be lifting us up. Our families and our neighbors are sick, and we're being lied to. They want to scare us into believing it has to be this way. It doesn't. In the past, when change was needed, we've stepped up. Now, it's time to step up again. This moment is not about Democrat or Republican. It's about being on the right side of history. We must set aside our differences, stand together, united, and ask, what can I do to help? It's time to put people ahead of politics, to put country over party. It's time to vote for America.
Vote. The question and one of the determining factors, I think, as Rick pointed out, is going to be who's going to get or who's going to hold on to each other's base long enough to get this thing over the end zone.
Yeah.
And there are more seniors. There are more white seniors than there are Latino Hispanic voters, which is, benefits Biden.
Right.
You have what's in all likelihood going to be another COVID spike because of the policies that they're implementing to save the economy. That benefits Biden.
Right.
And we also, I believe, have a good opportunity to not bring the Hispanic vote completely back and correct for it, but perhaps enough.
Right.
So if I'm looking at this environment in the next 30 days and saying who's got a better chance of bringing the base back, does Biden have a better chance of bringing Hispanics back into the historical range, or does Trump have the opportunity to bring back senior citizens who are in the middle of a COVID pandemic in the historic range? My money's on Biden. I think that poll is probably very, very accurate.
Cynthia in Bellingham in Washington. The stock market is not the economy. Its value is mostly made up of the top 50 corporations. Main Street is full of close signs. And the evictions and bankruptcies are just beginning. Joe Biden has been successful at inheriting another Republican recession. Vote Joe Biden. Save America.